Hi, in this Chordious tutorial, I'm going to go through the various options that are available in the Chord Finder. This tutorial assumes you've already installed Chordious. If you haven't installed Chordious, you can look at the Chordious installation tutorial video. Without further ado, let's get started. So I have Chordious up and running here, and I'm just going to click on the Chord Finder. I'm going to open up this window here. Let's go ahead and make this window a little bit bigger. Now, the way the chord finder works in Chordious, that Chordious does not have a database of all the valid chords for an instrument. Instead, Chordious uses a combination of music theory and math to search over the fretboard with the parameters you've provided and find the chords where they're at. So the quality of your chord results will depend entirely on your search parameters. So let's get started here. So we're going to start by looking at the top bar. And on the top bar here, we obviously have the target instrument, the tuning for that instrument, the root note of the chord that we're looking for, and the quality of that chord. And you can see for every item, if you put the cursor over it, it'll do a little tooltip to explain what that option does. So right here we have searching for the ukulele, with re-entered C tuning, looking for a C major chord. We go over here on the left-hand side, and we start off with a section of options. Now, these are search options that are going to change the parameters of the search. We have the number of frets to show in the diagram. So by default, right here we're going to show 5 frets. Max fret is 12, so that means we're not going to show any chords that play notes higher than the 12th fret. We have max reach of 4. So the reach is across how many frets you have to reach from top to bottom in order to play the chord. So a max reach of 4 means you're only going to reach over 4 frets, which is a reasonable amount to have to stretch your hands. Now, obviously, if you have smaller hands or you have mobility issues, you can reduce the max reach. That way you don't get chords that you won't be able to physically play. Next, we have whether or not you want to allow open strings in your chord results. That means strings that aren't being fretted. Muted strings, meaning strings that aren't being played at all. We have rootless chords, which I'll come back to at the end because it's kind of an interesting search case that comes up a lot and needs more explanation. Next down here, we have style options. So these are going to change how the chord diagrams look. By default here, we add the title, which is, of course, in this case, C for a C major chord. Mirror results, we'll just flip the diagrams. We'll flip the frets from left to right as if you had tuned it the opposite way. Often, this is how left-handed players play. They string their instrument with the tuning in the opposite direction. It's just a quick and easy way to get what you might call left-handed chord diagrams. Now under here, we have root notes, so whether or not you want to have root notes appear as diamonds instead of as the regular circles. We have bar type, so whether or not you want to show bar lines across where you would bar across all the frets. And you can do partial or full. So partial will show only the frets that you have to bar, and then full will just show a line all the way across. Mark text, so by default there's no text on each of the marks, the places where you're placing your fingers. But here you can automatically add some text, and so basically you can add the notes that are being played. Optionally, you can also turn on if you want to have those notes appearing at the bottom of the diagram. And then finally, you can choose which side to have the fret labels for those chords that are higher up the neck. So okay, let's go ahead and look for this C chord on the ukulele. We're going to hit search. And here you go. We have a ton of results. They all meet our criteria. Way down here, we have some, just open and muted strings. Right. So here are all the C chords that meet that criteria. Now, if we want to, we can change some things. We could say change the number of frets to 4. Now, I can click search again. Also, you could hit F5 on your keyboard. It's a little bit faster, but whichever works for you. So I can hit F5, and now you'll see all the diagrams are a little bit shorter. Let's say I don't want to play anything higher than the 5th fret. So I'm going to set the max fret to 5 and hit search. And now we're limiting myself just to the frets here at the top of, or sorry, all the way up against the nut. Now, I can go ahead and say, like, you know what, I don't want to have, let's say I don't want to allow muted strings. Like, the muted strings are weird. I want to play all 4 strings. So I'm going to uncheck that and search. Now I even have less results. But it meets exactly the criteria that I've specified. And then finally, if I wanted to, I could say, hey, I don't want to play open strings. I only want to play closed chords. So, hit search, and there we go. There's the one chord that meets that exact criteria that I've specified, the C major chord. Now, some of the style stuff we can see here. Obviously, if I wanted to, I could take off the title if you just want the diagram by itself. Mirror results, I'll show you, it just flips it, but it doesn't actually mirror the whole image, it just flips these marks, so obviously the C and the 3 are still written correctly. Adding root notes, if I do that, then you'll see that the C's or diamonds, and actually you want to make sure that those are C's. I can do the mark text and do show both here. Now I do search, and look, now we can see those are the actual notes that are being played. In fact, I can also do down here and click, and now I see those notes also at the bottom of the diagram. If I wanted to, I could switch this over to the left side. I could turn off these, so you can play and search again. When you play around with this and find the style you like. Oh yeah, and here are bar types. So if I do partial, it's only going to show this, because technically you only need a bar across those two. But if you wanted to, you can also do full, and that will show a line all the way across. If that's what you prefer in your diagram. It's really all about how you want the diagrams to look, and that's the whole point of using Chordious, is it doesn't just find all the chords, it lets you style them the way that you want. So let's say you've done all this and you've set all these settings, and you're like, this is how I want to search for all my chords. I want to search for, G chords that meet this criteria, and if I search with G, okay, here are the 2 chords that meet that criteria. So let's say this is how I want to search for all my chords. Here's where these default buttons come into play. So I can go ahead and do set as default, and it'll ask me, do you want to set these parameters all here as your new defaults? And I can say yes. And now, if I change something, let's say I check all these boxes, because I'm playing around and trying different things. I want to go back to my defaults. I can do reset to defaults right here, click yes, and now that takes me back to those. And now I can search again and get back to where I had before. So that's all the options here on the left. The last thing I'm going to cover, the last couple of things, we have these couple little pencil icons up here. So this lets you create and manage your instruments and tunings. You can add your own custom instruments and your own custom tunings. I'm not going to cover that in this video. This launches the instrument manager. I'm going to cover that in the instrument manager tutorial video. Similarly, this will launch the chord quality manager, and this will let you create your own chord quality. So if you click in here and look, and you see all these wonderful chord qualities, but there's one that you just can't find, and you want to add it yourself because Chordious doesn't know about it, you can add your own. So it's another power of Chordious, is that you can always add the things that are missing that suit your needs. Okay, so the final thing I'm going to show is about saving it. So let's say you find diagrams and you want to save them for later. So I'm going to go ahead and let's say I want to have this G diagram. I want to save it for later. So I can click Save Selected. You can select, hold Shift or Control, and you can hit multiple diagrams. But right now I just want one. I'm going to do Save Selected. I'm going to call this, so it's going to ask me to pick a collection. So the collections are part of your diagram library, and that's also going to be covered in another video. But basically, right now I don't have any, so I'm going to go ahead and create a new one, and we're going to call this Chord Finder Tutorial, and click OK. So that's saved, and I can access that later. Should I go back and find that C chord that I liked? Okay, take that C chord. I'm going to save that into the Chord Finder tutorial. It's already there, so I can hit OK. And let's go one more chord. So this time, I'm going to search for a D dominant 7th, or a D7 chord. So if I search with these settings, this is what it's going to find for the ukulele. This is how you play a D7 chord, a closed form D7 chord. Now, this may not be the chord that you're expecting. If you've played the ukulele before, a lot of times you'll find that people play the D7 with second fret open, second fret open. Now, that technically isn't a D7 chord. What that is a rootless D7 chord. So it has all of the other notes, A, F sharp, and C, but it doesn't have the D root note. And so to show how that works, I'm just going to go ahead, I'm going to allow rootless chords, so this option comes into play. So when there's a chord that you can't find, that's a rootless chord, you can enable rootless chords here, and in this case I also want open strings. So now if I search, here we see, here's that 2, 0, 2, 0, here's that D7 chord. As you can see, there's no D in there, but this is a common thing when you're playing a fretted stringed instrument, especially an instrument that has less strings, like an ukulele. As you get into higher, more complicated, jazzier chords, sometimes it's not possible to play them on an instrument completely. So people do take these kinds of shortcuts, like leaving out the root note. So here's how you can also add rootless chords into your results. So you can see there's a bunch of D7s here that don't actually include D notes. But let's say I'm going to take this one and I'm going to go ahead and save that to my chord finder tutorial collection. If it's the one in there, I can always do a different one, but I'm going to save that one in there. And that's it for this tutorial. I hope you found it useful, and otherwise, go try out Chordious today. Thank you.